Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into just 7 short verses from the Gospel of Matthew. But don't let the length fool you, they pack an incredible punch, taking us from a mind-blowing miracle all the way to a profound call to action. Okay, let's start right here. This is the reaction of the crowd. And this one phrase tells you everything you need to know. What they just witnessed was something completely new, something literally unprecedented. So what could possibly have happened to provoke a reaction like that? So, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at this new kind of power that Jesus puts on display. Then, we'll dig into the seriously divided reaction it causes. After that, we'll see how Jesus looks past all that to see a much deeper problem. And finally, what he says is the solution. First up, let's get right into the event that had everybody talking. It seems pretty straightforward on the surface, but when you peel back the layers, you see it has some really profound implications. The story moves fast, it's very direct. So, right as some people are leaving, they bring this man to Jesus who can't speak. And the text tells us it's because he's possessed by a devil. Jesus doesn't make a big show of it, he just casts the devil out. And boom, the man who is mute can now speak. A clear problem, a direct action, and an immediate, undeniable result. Now, this is where the historical context becomes absolutely crucial. Our sources point out something fascinating. Sure, the Old Testament prophets performed some incredible miracles, but you won't find any record of them casting out demons in this particular way. This kind of direct authority was completely new to the people, and that explains everything about their amazement. It's why they said, nothing like this has ever been seen in Israel. But whenever you see a display of power this raw and this new, not everyone is going to see it the same way. In fact, this single event immediately splits the crowd and creates this sharp division, which really becomes the central conflict of the whole passage. And this slide just lays it out perfectly, doesn't it? On one side, you've got the crowds, just the regular people, and they are filled with wonder. They see something divine at work. But then you have the Pharisees. They see the exact same thing, and they jump to the darkest possible conclusion, accusing Jesus of using Satan's power. Why? Well, think about it. This new authority, it's a direct threat to their entire system, and it just doesn't fit into their neat little theological boxes. One event, 2 totally opposite takeaways. So in the middle of all this incredible miracle on one hand and this vicious accusation on the other, Jesus does something amazing. He zooms out. He looks past the immediate reactions and sees a much bigger, much more sweeping problem with the spiritual state of the people all around him. He looks at these crowds, and he's not just seeing a mob. The text says he was moved with compassion, a really deep, gut-level empathy. And he describes them with this powerful metaphor. To him, they weren't just a group of people. They were like a whole flock of sheep, totally lost and vulnerable. So let's break that down, because every word there matters. When he says they fainted, he means they were spiritually exhausted, just worn out. Scattered abroad means they had no direction, no guidance. And no shepherd, that's the key. They were missing real spiritual leadership. The real problem wasn't just this one man's affliction. It was that the very people who were supposed to be their shepherds, the religious leaders, were failing them completely. This was a crisis of leadership. Okay, so Jesus has diagnosed this massive problem, but he doesn't just leave it there. He immediately turns to his disciples and lays out the solution. He shifts right from observation into a call to action. And he uses another powerful image to get the point across. The harvest, he says, is huge. That represents all the people out there in spiritual need. But the laborers, the people available to actually help, they're few and far between. This picture of a great imbalance just perfectly captures the scale and the absolute urgency of the situation. Now, what's so interesting here is that his solution isn't another big miracle. His first command to his disciples is to pray. He tells them to ask the Lord of the harvest to send more workers. It's a signal that this divine work isn't supposed to be a solo act. It needs a whole team, a whole workforce. And this isn't just some random piece of advice. This is a setup. It's the scene before the main event. As the source material makes crystal clear, this call to pray for laborers leads directly into the very next chapter, Matthew 10, where Jesus actually commissions his 12 apostles and sends them out into that very harvest he was just talking about. So it all comes full circle, doesn't it? We start with one man who cannot speak, and we end with a command to speak to God, to pray for more help. The passage doesn't just identify a problem, it gives the very first step in the solution. And it leaves us with this powerful thought.
If the harvest is still just as big today, who are the laborers and how are they being called into the field?